Greetings, everyone. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. It's Top 10 Day, and in the co-captain's chair, Mr. Grant Arthur from Grant's Rock Warehouse and the Contrarians. What's going on, my friend?
Ooh, watching the balloons rise.
Balloons, look
I'm
at
good. I'm
that.
excited to be back. It's been a while. We're going to talk some Poco.
Yes.
And hey, I I don't know how you feel about this catalog, but I really enjoyed this assignment. And there's some wonderful stuff here. I will just leave
There
it
it
at
is.
that before we get
Yeah.
started.
We've had a lot of requests for Poco, and Grant and I have done a lot of things together in the kind of like yacht rock vein, although I wouldn't say that Poco's really that at all. I mean, basically they are a country rock band. But Grant and I were talking before we started taping. It's like I've had a a Poco greatest hits set for quite a number of years. Always really liked their hits. I have their first live album as well. Always really liked that, but I never dove any further. So when Grant and I decided a couple months ago that we were going to do this, we both started going out and picking up the rest of the catalog because that's what we do, right? And in over the last few weeks, really kind of like immersing myself in these albums. There's a lot of really strong material here, and like this is like a band that I'm kind of now that we've gotten to this point. I'm kind of dumbfounded that this band wasn't huge because some of their contemporaries, hello Eagles, right? Became an enormous band, and I would argue that a lot of what people love about Eagles music is all over these albums. And maybe the Eagles had more of those kind of can't miss hits, right? But there's plenty of them here, and I kind of think that Poco sort of got the shaft in this whole thing. And these are actually really, really fine albums. And granted, I'll be fully transparent here. There is lots of material on these albums that isn't necessarily my cup of tea all the time because it leans a little more on the country side of things, but it's so well done. The songs are so expertly recorded and written. And we're going to talk about it. These vocal harmonies, 3 and 4 part vocal harmonies on all these albums. It's absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning, regardless of who's in the band. So I really enjoyed this assignment, big time. And there's a lot of albums. We're just doing a top 10 because they've got like whatever it is, 17, 18 albums or something like that. So we're doing our 10 favorites here. And as Grant and I were joking beforehand, I'm sure our rankings are going to be completely different.
Mhm.
Maybe. We'll see. We don't know. We don't compare.
We've lined up pretty well on a lot of stuff. Maybe one show we didn't line up very well, but that just led me to believe that that catalog was, or whatever band it was very strong because you heard it differently. I heard it differently. And I think that me personally, my feeling is on this, we might be doing the same thing here. So that just reinforces what a great catalog it is. But this exercise, this is why we do it. This is fun. We're trying to turn you on to stuff. And hopefully we can turn you on to some of this stuff if you haven't heard it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and this is probably one of those bands that everybody's heard of. Maybe everybody knows 1 or 2 of their hits, but I think they're a name that's always been out there. But you have to wonder, like, how many folks that will be watching this know all of these albums and have bought these albums and listened to all these albums, or if this is just one of those bands that you know the name, you know a couple hits, but how deep you've gone into the catalog might be fairly minuscule. So we'll see. But yeah, it's so we're gonna do our top 10. What do we usually do? We do top three at a time. We'll do our
we
10,
can do
9,
three at a
8,
time.
three at a time, and then we'll reveal our number one at the end. Okay, that
Yeah, we
works.
can do three.
Okay.
All right. Well, to start this off, I'm going to go with my number 10. I'm going to go with the album Seven, which is, if I can get my finger in the right spot, this record right here. Now, what I'm showing everybody is the BGO twofer. As far as I know, if you're looking into this catalog and you want physical media, most of this stuff, oh, look, the thumbs up is going crazy. All this stuff's still in print on BGO. I have nothing to do with BGO, but if you're a physical media person, that's where I would go. And
Yeah.
all of these, and Pete will agree with me, all these reissues on BGO sound wonderful. They barely got any of these released in the States on
Yeah.
CD. These albums weren't really big sellers. They had a couple of albums that really went huge. The Eagles far outsold them.
Oh yeah.
And the only thing that I can come up with before I start my ranking, because you brought this up, the only reason that I think that The Eagles were able to make it. Maybe it's better management. Maybe it was better production. I don't think it was production. Maybe it was the quality of the vocals because, Don Henley, very distinct. You hear Don sing or Glenn Fry sing or Joe Walsh sing, very distinct. And they had very distinct singers. Poco was a lot about the harmonies when I hear them. And I don't think that the vocals were that distinct. But when Richie Furay was in the band, and I must say, when I get to seven, this is the first album after he left the band. I think when Richie was in the band, I think they really had a solid vocal sound because he was very distinct. And when he left, I think they kind of lost that, even though all these people, all these members can sing, all are great players. We're going to talk about that, Pete. All these songs are pretty much great. There's hardly any stinkers. There is a couple of stinkers on seven, though. I was hoping this would rank higher because it's a rocker. And the way I like my Poco, I like a rock and Poco. I like a perfect blend of rock and country rock. And some of these records, as we're going to find, are more of a country album
Yeah.
than a country rock album or even a rock album. So let me get started. That was my whole, getting
And
all
before you
geeked.
get started, because you were talking about the BGO releases, the two first
Yes.
one ones. So if you're looking, by the time you get done with this episode, folks, and you're looking to maybe go investigate your Poco collection, I keep wanting to say Toto. There's all these BGO releases, the two albums in one set that we're going to show, and also there is this collection here,
Oh,
the original album classics, which will
yeah.
give you the first five albums all in one set in little like kind of cardboard sleeve type of things.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
would go with
actually
that.
very easy to get these nowadays. So
Yeah. There you go. I always like to throw that out there because people may want to know where you get them.
yeah,
So, and I will say this, that those BGO releases sound really great.
yeah,
Okay.
it's really good.
My number 10 is seven. First album after Richie Furay left the band. I miss Richie. I thought Richie was really part of the main sound, but I think on this record it holds up well. Starts out with Driving Wheel by Paul Cotton. Starts off with a rocker.
Yeah,
But you can tell on this record, this is a bit of a transitional record because they're trying to get their uh, feet, back on board, trying to get their balance because Richie's gone. But I can detect Richie's vocals aren't on this record. But still, you still have Timothy B. Schmidt. You do have Rusty Young. He's probably doing backgrounds. I forget what album. I think on the ABC album, one of the later ones was his first lead vocal. I'm sure he's doing background vocals, but I don't know for sure on what. But Driving Wheel's a good rocker that starts out. Then we go into pure country. Rocky Mountain Breakdown. Well, it's exactly what you think. It's just like Rocky Top, pretty much. Pure country, nothing wrong with that. The band hasn't lost anything without Richie as far as musicianship and playability, but it's pure country. See, so far this album, we have a rocker, we have a country song. Right. Then we've got "Just Call My Name" which is a Timothy B. Schmidt song. This is a pretty heavy rocker for Timothy B. Schmidt because, as we know, the Eagles, all he got to sing was one ballad,
no,
and most of the stuff on the Poco stuff, he's doing ballads, but he's doing a rocker here. Great rock, great vocals, okay songwriting. I just keep thinking for this far into their career, they kind of honed things down a bit before because you got some albums that really were a good mix of country rock, and this isn't that. We've got another Timothy B. Schmidt song, "Shaken," which we got distorted guitars on here. We've gotten this before, but we're talking this is later, 1974. So I appreciate the more rocking Poco, but I don't think the songwriting on this track is up to snuff. I do like, we should mention this, Rusty Young. Whenever you hear a Hammond organ, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a Hammond organ. It is Rusty Young pumping his pedal steel through a Leslie cabinet.
yeah,
Absolutely brilliant. But we get that on there. We get this early on in Poco. Like on the second album, he started to use that. Wonderful. But here's a lyric, "Skating over the water." What? I don't know what he's talking about. I just think this song's awkward. I don't care for this song. Come on, Tim. But I must say, as he keeps going, I mean, everybody kind of fills in after Richie laugh because Timothy had to step up his game. Paul Cotton has to step up his game. And then we start getting Rusty stepping up his game. So, it's
And
good.
George is singing too, right? So it's like the
And
whole thing.
George is singing.
Yeah.
You kind of get what I'm saying. I don't think the songwriter, I don't have to go. You can talk about it if it's in your lineup. Songwriting's not quite as good. The production's good. The playing's great. It's not purely country rock, some of it's country. I think the album, they didn't know quite what they were going to do without Richie, and it's my number 10. But I want to say that none of these albums are bad, but they have to go somewhere. My number 9, I am going to go with, what am I going to go? I'm going to go with From the Inside. Get back. Um, well, I thought I had it. Maybe I don't have it. Pete, you got that
I
handy?
do. Yeah. Hold on. Let me track it down from the inside.
Oh, here it is. From the Inside. All right. This is the Iconoclastic CD. This has 2 bonus tracks that would had a couple of singles, and we're going to talk about that from this record. But this is the first album that included Paul Cotton. So he replaced Jim Messina, who left to go hang out with Kenny Loggins. So we know what happened with him. Wonderful production, great recording, produced by Steve Cropper. Good stuff. This is a lot more solemn. When I listen to this, it's not uppity, it's not happy-go-lucky, so to speak. It's a good record. Starts out with Hoedown, more country, pure country. Hoedown is Bad Weather, Paul Cotton. Uh, Thinking that this is Paul's first effort. What was he was in Illinois Speed Press, or what
Yeah.
was the
Some
band he was
I
in?
never kind of came in contact with
But I
before.
think that they were one of those critically acclaimed bands, but he came over from that. But I think his offerings here are good. I think he gets better as we go through the catalog. Obviously, by
Yeah.
the time we get to Legend or something like that, he's like a
He's the
songwriter. He's
MVP of the band at some point.
MVP.
Yeah.
He and Rusty Young.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right. Anyway, Bad Weather, first effort, soaring harmonies. The acoustic guitars just ring out. The acoustic guitar solo in this track is a very nice touch. When I hear this, it reminds me of Michael Nesmith and the First National Band. If you know anything about that, country rock, they always think that Poco really started out. Well, First National Band was starting out in '68 after the Byrds. So, these guys are a little bit later, but
Burrito Brothers as well, right?
yeah,
So that's yep.
all contemporaries.
Yep.
Uh, Next song, What Am I Gonna Do? Which is a Richie Furay song. Beautiful, beautiful steel guitar, nice piano. It's classic Richie. If you listen to Richie from the Buffalo Springfield, you like his ballads, his just delivery. We've got it here. It's pure country. That's fine. You've got great Poco harmonies. Richie has another track on here. You Are the One. Acoustic guitars again ring out. There's a lot of acoustic guitar on this. This album is not an album that rocks out. It might country out, but it doesn't rock out. Um, More upbeat track. You've got the other thing I want to mention, since we're on a talking stuff, is the bass playing of Timothy B. Schmidt. He's very punchy. If you really just listen to his playing, he's such a good bass player.
Yeah.
We all know he's an excellent vocalist, great on harmonies, but the bass on here is really punchy. Um, one thing when I listened to this, I wrote down, I said, one thing I get from these songs is that boy, oh boy, was Richie Furay a great songwriter. He was good in Buffalo Springfield. He was great here. All the Richie songs on here are great. Railroad Days is a Paul Cotton song. We're getting really kind of heavy twang guitar. Like he must be playing a telly the way it sounds. More upbeat track, but it's still very country. Punchy bass from Mr. Schmidt. Um, I think it's all right, but I do think the one thing that Paul Cotton brought to the band was exceptional skill at playing guitar solos and guitars just in general. Some of these earlier records that come before this, I think he absolutely just smokes, and we will get to that. So I think this is an okay record. I could keep going. It's more of the same. A lot of acoustic guitars. It's more country than rock and roll or country rock. The songwriting here is all great. The musicianship's all great. I think there are better records. But I will say I don't have any problem with the songwriting on this record. I just don't think that it's quite as it's a little bit too solemn for me. I want something a little bit more uppity. Okay. Anyway, number 8, and this originally was my number 10, Pete. I moved it around, but for some reason I can't get this record out of my head. My number 8, I'm going to have to go with Legend. I guess you could see it right there.
Yep.
Now, this originally started out as a Cotton Young Band album. It wasn't supposed to be a Poco record.
Yeah, they're pretty much done at that point. Yeah.
They were pretty much done. So they got a couple other gentlemen to play, Charlie Harrison and Steve Chapman. Mr. Harrison played bass and Steve Chapman played drums. This is a much more of a pop album. But the thing is, once you hear this record, and by the way, this was their biggest selling album. This was, they had 2 singles on here that were their 2 best selling singles. You cannot get these songs out of your head.
Yeah.
So I originally rated it low because I thought, wow, this really isn't a Poco album. Really? Oh, damn it. I can't help myself. I like this album quite a bit, but since it really emerged kind of like out of a test tube, hey, we're going to brand it Poco. Okay. I'm hesitant to call it Poco, but it is. This song has the great Paul Cotton song, Heat of the Night. Oh my God, a classic. And I have to say, one of my favorite Poco songs by Rusty Young, Crazy Love. Rusty Young as a vocalist seems so pure and he feels what he's singing and his delivery. Why weren't we using Rusty from the beginning like this? Not only is he a great player, I mean, absolutely brilliant. All the steel guitar on all these records. If you're a steel player, you like Sneaky Pete, my God, check him out. I
Steel
mean, it's
guitar,
brilliant.
banjo, electric and acoustic guitar. I mean,
Dobro,
oh yeah,
whatever.
is it all?
And he can sing and he can
Yep.
write great songs.
Yep.
He became more of a songwriter as he kept going. All the songs on here are good. Boomerang, Paul Cotton. Well, I must say this, it almost sounds like a TV theme song. Not much country. It's kind of funky,
It's
a little
really
bit more
good.
rock,
It's really
but it's
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Spellbound, slow track. And I wrote on here, God, Rusty Young just gets me right in the back of the neck. I just love Rusty Young. Little bit yachty, great song harmonies, catchy. Song kind of reminds me of Beautiful Boy by John Lennon, that whole intro part. But whatever. Barbados, get on your yacht, ladies and gentlemen. We're
Yep.
going to Barbados.
Yep.
But it's a great song. It's a great song. So far, country rock is gone and AOR is here. Good song here. Another great song, Little Darling by Rusty Young. Rusty's on fire. It almost falls into that Firefall player territory when I hear it. And if you haven't watched it, watch the show that Pete and I did on Firefall and Player. Highly recommend those catalogs too. Hey, check it out.
And
Uh,
we should mention Firefall again, kind of in this realm for the most
yeah,
part. This whole kind of like
they
country
fit
rock and
together.
pop thing. Yeah.
But Little Darling's a bit yachty, or maybe you consider it more 70s pop. But normally I like their harder stuff, but God, this is such a good pop album. I'm so sorry.
It
I
is.
don't want to apologize, but it's a good pop record and good for Poco that after all those years they could have some recognition and a hit and bring some money in. Recommend this record, but because it really is a Cotton Young duo album like Crosby Nash, I'm putting it at number 8. But I would not hesitate you checking this album out first. It's a great record. I think you could probably go with any of these records and you'll find something worthwhile. But there's my 3.
All right. More about that album a bit later.
Oh,
Spoiler alert.
no. Well, that's what I'm saying. I could put it at 8. You could put it at 3.
We shall see.
Hey, all right, go ahead.
All will be revealed shortly. All right, so as Grant mentioned, this was hard because I went and obviously there's a lot of albums in this catalog, so I went and kind of listened and took notes on a lot of them. as I was getting ready, and I had some obviously that didn't make the cut of 10 that are actually really good, but the ones, I had at least three or four that could have been my number 10 or my number nine, right? So I went back and forth, and you know how it goes. Eventually, you have to say, all right, enough. The way I have the ranking is the way I have the ranking. Just leave it at B at this point.
Mm.
So my number 10 is going to be Picking Up the Pieces, the debut album,
Oh, my
1969.
goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
rated it higher. I told you we're not going to line up on
Yeah.
this one, but that's
Really good
okay. Good.
album. Really good album. So, I mean, this is basically with that original lineup, right? So you got Richie Furay, you got Jim Messina, you got Rusty Young, George Grantham, Randy Meisner plays bass on here. Yes, Randy Meisner from the Eagles, originally a member of this band.
Supposedly plays bass. There is a rumor that he's just doing vocals and that Messina redid the bass lines.
Who
No
knows?
one can confirm that. After all these years, no one can confirm if that was done. I look at the record, I'm assuming Randy's doing the bass, singing backgrounds. I don't think they really removed him. I think they just, oh, well, we got rid of him or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Who
who
knows?
knows?
He's on here at least vocally, right? For sure.
Yep.
That we do know. You got Bobby Doyle and Mill Holland also help her out, and you got Jim Messina producing this album. Forward slash What a Day opens, really fun song, jangly guitars, big bright vocals, Rusty's wild steel guitar. I mean, he's really all over all these early albums. There you go.
Yep.
Um, Nobody's Fool. That rocks. Killer harmonies.
Mhm.
It's got horns. Really great tune. Calico Lady's pretty catchy. First Love kind of ventures a little too far into straight country for my taste. I mean, that's generally the only thing I have with parts of this catalog is some of their like just straight laid back kind of breezy country stuff. Not necessarily for me, but again, it's still well done. Make Me Smile is a terrific song. I mean, that reminds me of like Buffalo Springfield. You get the birds. The vocal
Mhm.
harmonies remind me a little bit of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. A little bit.
Oh,
Same
oh,
time period. So
yeah.
I kept listening to that song over and over again, Grant. I'm like, there's something else that this is reminding me of. And finally it hit me. It was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I'm like, it's the only real track of where it does that.
Huh.
And Rusty's steel guitar is just outstanding on this. Shortchanged is a nice rocker. They bring the rock out. Picking Up the Pieces, that's kind of twangy country, musically really good. Junction is total instrumental, really good. Oh Yeah is kind of bluesy. Tomorrow's kind of that weepy kind of country thing, maybe a little too much for me. But man, the guitar playing on consequently so long, really good. And Do You Feel It Too is also really good. Amazing three-part vocal harmonies on this album. Right off the bat, they start with that. That's kind of their trademark. And I think even though parts of this album are a little too country for me, I still think like instrumentally, like musically speaking, it's dynamite. So that's why it's not surprised me that you might rank this a little higher than me and other people might have it higher. Plus you get that original lineup, right? That's something to be said about that. But
Mhm.
great musicianship, really good album. It's top 10, right? And that's my number 10. My number nine. So here's the surprise.
Oh
So
boy.
I'm going to go with their 1989 reunion album called Legacy.
Ooh.
This is their 17th album, right? Produced by David Cole for RCA Records. RCA bought ABC Records, I believe how it was. So here you've got Jim Messina, Richie Furay, Rusty Young, Randy Meisner, and George Grantham all getting back together for the first time since that very,
Mhm.
very first record. Although I don't believe George plays drums on this album, he just sings. They've got Jeff Porcaro from Toto. There's the Toto connection, and Gary Malaber doing the drums. And there's other people that show up on here. I think this is a really strong album. It's definitely different than this because it's less country, it's more 80s sounding, but I
Yeah.
think it rocks really well. But it's got a lot of those trademark vocal harmonies, which I think we love so much from the band. Like Where It All Began, it's basically written about where the band all began, right? And that totally takes you back to the old days. It's got the great vocal harmonies, so good. You got pedal steel and banjo and great guitars, electric and acoustic, just really, really good stuff. Call It Love, really memorable. It's a pop song, right? It's got some big roaring guitars, great vocals from Rusty. Again, to Grant's point, Rusty kind of became their secret weapon, not only from an instrumental standpoint, but I think from a vocal perspective, because he all of a sudden came out of his shell at one point, and then he was singing just like everybody else was, which is really cool. The Nature of Love rocks hard. It's kind of like an 80s hard rocker, guitars flying all over the place. What Do People Know? That's kind of pop, it's melodic, it's good vocal harmonies. Nothing to Hide is kind of like a mushy ballad, but man, Randy Meisner sounds so good on it. It's just great to hear him sing and lead. I mean, he's just such a great singer, and I always missed him in the Eagles after he left. No disrespect to Timothy B. Schmidt at all. Weird how they kind of traded places, right, in the Eagles, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, who else? Catchy Pop, Loving You Every Minute is a sizzling rocker with some kick-ass guitar playing on it from these guys. And you got three pretty serious guitar players on this album,
Mhm.
obviously. I think my one regret about this album is I kind of wish Paul Cotton was part of it as well. It's like I get it. They wanted to do the original band, but how cool would it have been to have Paul as well, have four guitar players, everybody's singing. That would have been kind of neat. But otherwise, I think this is really good. I This originally was not in my top 10. It kind of like popped in and out, and then redoing this and re-listening, I was like, man, I really enjoyed this album. So I wanted to get at least one latter period album, but this was to be the one and done for this lineup again, because one after this album came out, they went away for a while, and then Cotton and Rusty and George got back together and put the band back together again later on. So, but yeah, Legacy, my number nine, and number eight, I'm gonna go with, where is it? Rose of Cimarron, which is
Oh.
this album right here. And I will say, Grant, this is one of those albums that I think overall, I don't think it's maybe as strong as a couple of the albums that I just mentioned. But damn it, that title track is
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
To me, the title track carries this album, and it's just so good. I couldn't leave this album off. So, band produces this album, ABC Records. You got Al Garth on fiddle and violin, and Steve Ferguson on keyboards joining the lineup here. Uh, I mean, the title track is just one of the best songs of this style ever. Uh, it- the vocals are outstanding. The harmonies are great. It's like this perfect blend of pop and country. It's just so good. And then you got this wonderful Paul Cotton guitar solo at the end to kind of take you out. It's lush. It's just amazing. Really good. Steal Away is also really good. Big thick guitars. It's more of kind of like a breezy country pop song, but
Mhm.
it's just really great. Just Like Me is very catchy. You got Slowpoke, Too Many Nights, Too Long. They're kind of mellow and not really all that memorable for me, but they're well done. When You Come Around, big upbeat country track, lots of pedal steel from Rusty. That's pretty good. Staring at the Sky, great vocal from Timothy Schmidt on that. Really good. Got Al Ferguson delivers this, or Steve Ferguson delivers this really good sax solo, which is kind of nice to hear in Poco stuff. Um, all Alone Together, it doesn't do much for me, but I really like Tulsa Turnaround, which is more of an acoustic song, but man, Paul is just picking all over the place on it. So I think Head Over Heels, I mean, sorry, Rose of Cimarron is kind of a mellow album. It's a little laid back, but it's well done. There's a couple really, really strong tracks, but for me, the title track pushes this into my top 10 because I really was going to leave it out, but I just couldn't do it because that song is just so good. So that's my 10, 9, and 8.
All right. So my number seven is also Rose of Cimarron.
Yeah.
I put on here, what a great sounding album full of great tunes. Now, everything that you said was 100% true. Rose of Cimarron, what a great opener. Written by Rusty Young.
Yeah.
I sound like a Rusty Young fanboy. Love the
He
vocal
deserves the
interplay.
love, man. He
The,
deserves.
the vocal interplay on this track is incredible,
Yeah,
bouncing off each other. Excellent songwriting, memorable. This is a classic. I agree 100% with you. If you buy this, you have to just get this just for that song.
that's it. That's
You
it.
are 100%
Should have been
correct.
a massive hit. And granted, Emmylou Harris made it a big hit afterwards, but it should have been a huge hit for these guys because it's that good. It's that good.
Steal Away, another Rusty Young song. I'm telling you, Rusty is coming into his
Writing a
own.
lot. Yeah, yeah.
Again, this album to me, yes, there's a lot of country on here, but I think they are trying to shed the country. They're becoming more of a pop band because I think that this song leans closer to pop with good results. Catchy chorus. I want to mention this Paul Cotton. If there's one guitar player Paul Cotton reminds me of, it's Stephen Stills. And I know Stephen
Yeah,
Stills isn't on here, but his tone and the way he approaches his solos is very Stephen Stills like.
that's a good point. Yeah, I would agree.
And I
Yeah.
I dig Stephen Stills' guitar. His guitar playing always seems like it could go out of control at any moment. He's like just coming up with stuff and just riffing and just that's just the way I feel when I hear Paul. I like it. I've no issue with that at all. Just like me, you mentioned another catchy Timothy B. Schmidt song. This is leaning to later CSN when I hear this. More great pop, great background vocals. It's pop. But then the thing is, the band's so schizophrenic, they jump to coming slowpoke. Uh, it is total country. There's no country rock here. It's everybody showing off their chops, but it kind of makes the album a little disjointed, I think, because it's not cohesive when they do this. Of course, I'm going to talk about an album later that kind of goes against my thinking here, but we'll get there. But the company's coming in slowpoke. There's a lot of people playing on it. John Logan, banjo, Al Garth, fiddle. We got Mitt Holland, the great Mitt Holland, whoever that is, playing washboard. But it's just about everybody jamming and playing back and forth, and it's pure country. It's fine. It's fine. Too Many Nights, acoustic bass track, pop, maybe a tinge of country. Vocals are great. This whole album, it's a beautiful sounding record. All the songs are good, but it's just a little bit disjointed. That's the only reason it's not like at number two. I would say if you're going to get Poco catalog, you would have to have this just for Roses Cimarron.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
whole thing, if you like more country than country rock or more pop, okay, there. This isn't a really rocking record by any
No,
means.
no.
So my number six, I am going to go with Head Over Heels, which is, if I can get my finger in the right spot, this record here. This is the first record, eighth studio album, and their first for ABC Records. Um, well, it's my number six. We're getting higher up on the ranking. Funny thing about this, we've got a Steely Dan song on here. They remake a Steely Dan song called Dallas to excellent results, I must say. I'll get to
Oh
that in a
yeah.
minute. But Head Over Heels, good record. Keep on trying. Timothy B. Schmidt has the opening number. Acoustic guitars and harmony, absolutely brilliant, absolutely beautiful, stunning. Everybody's really up front on this record. It sounds very immediate. It kind of feels like I'm in the room with them a little bit. Loving Arms by Rusty Young continues from where the opening track left off. Great production. We got some fiddle. This has a lot of country influence, but it's got more of a pop element.
Yep.
Let Me Turn Back on You. I wrote on here another Paul Cotton song. Oh, wait a minute. Loving Arms. Did I say that's Rusty Young or did I say Paul Cotton? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. I think Loving Arms, I can't remember what I'm talking about. Loving Arms is Rusty Young and not Paul Cotton. Let Me Turn Back on You is a Paul Cotton track. And the thing that I wrote on my notes, I said, man, this album flows very well. This track could have easily fit on Legend. It's a great pop song with a little bit of a country overtone. Rusty really sticks out on this record. Making Love is a Young song, very poppy. Down on the Quarter, Cotton, more Louisiana based than I think country rock. I keep thinking maybe a little bit of CCR flavor, maybe. Sitting on the Fence is Rusty Young. Nice bass intro. Got some steel drums on here, and the guitars just shimmer. Great harmonies, great track. Dare I take a? It's kind of like a modern take of Buffalo Springfield. Um, you kind of get the idea. It's a little bit more of a pop record, a little bit more Louisiana flavored. More immediate production, good production, great vocals on this record. Oh, and I must say, the song Us by Rusty Young is Rusty's first lead vocal. There's a lot of harmonies on this song, so Rusty doesn't stick out quite so much, but it's got great mandolin, great bass, and the guitars on this whole record just kind of shimmer. There's a shine to them. I could keep going. Well, Dallas, Steely Dan. You think Poco doing a Steely Dan song? Well, it works.
Works really well.
Strings, the steel is predominant. Rusty sounds great. I wrote Steely Dan track that works as a Poco track. Vocals are killer. Love the sound of Paul's Telecaster. Love it. Good record. I could go on. I think I pretty much summed it up. It's my number six. I would highly recommend it. Definitely get this too for if you can get it because both of them are on here. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
All right, my number. What am I on? Number five. I'm gonna go with this record, Crazy Eyes. Now, this is 1973. This album is Richie Furay. No, he knows he's leaving the band when he records this. And he didn't tell the band, but he left right there you go. He left right before it was released. He was keeping it silent. But we do have Chris Hillman on here, and that just gives you a little bit of a hint on where he went. This is much more experimental. This received a lot more positive feedback, from the reviewers. It sounds like Poco, but they're stretching out a bit. And I can appreciate that. Would I say this is a more commercial affair? I'd say probably not. But it has a lot to offer. Um, I want to mention this. No, this is not right. I think, isn't this one of the first albums? No, this is like the third album that Jack Richardson produced because
Yes.
he started with,
The three
okay,
albums.
he did three albums. And I wanted to say, I think he really fits in well with the band. I like what he brings as a producer. I think it's fine. Like I said, you have some guests. We have Bob Ezrin playing piano on some of it. Anyway, let's look at the tracks. It starts out with Blue Water, Paul Cotton. Great production, very country rock. But I think since I just don't know why, but I feel like the band's on fire. On this track, they're all playing very well. It's good instrumentation. Everybody's stretching out. I like it. Fool's Gold is a Rusty song. This is it almost is like the same song, more of a country jam. And that's fine. It's just like a 2 minute long song. Would you call this filler? Possibly, but it's a jam, and Rusty can play anything. Fiddle, it's got everything including the kitchen sink.
Yeah, it's
A
almost
lot
like
of great
bluegrass.
chords.
It's just like, yeah,
It's like bluegrass.
you know,
Okay, there you go. Here we go again. Timothy B. Schmidt, a Tim ballad that kicks it up later in the track. Starts out slow, but man, it brings it later. I love it. Guitar solo really takes it up a notch. And the backing vocals, wonderful. We have a Graham Parsons cover. What year was this again? This is like
73,
73. What
73.
year did Graham Parsons pass away? Was it 73, 74?
Yeah, because it was after Exile on Main Street, right? So it had to have been, yeah, 74, maybe 75, something like that.
Can't remember, but Richie seems to be into Graham Parsons because he used to know Graham when they used to live in the village. So they were all hanging around in New York. He does a version of Brass Buttons. So this had not been released yet when Graham Parsons brought it out. He released it like 4 months later. But Richie's doing a version of it. I think it's beautiful. Wonderful track. It's a great song. Lemonheads do a version of it too. If you don't know it, check it out. Great song. I want to mention though, you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying, but Crazy Eyes is a 9 minute track, a track written about Graham Parsons. The band really stretches out. We got tribal drums, we've got strings, the kitchen sinks thrown in. It's a wonderful track, but it's very experimental.
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost Prague when you think about it, It's like,
yeah, it's like Richie's getting ready to go to, Southern Hillman Fury band. And it's like, oh, well, whatever. I'm just gonna, I've given up on Poco. I'm just gonna do something I want to do. And that's the way it sounds to me. If anybody knows the Beach Boys Smile album, it kind of reminds me of that because it's very experimental. You got strings, you got banjo. It's almost a spiritual opus. but it's very experimental. It reminds me of the experimental tracks Neil would do in the Springfield. It's kind of like that. I think Richie got a lot out of working with Neil back in the day because so much of his stuff just reminds me of Neil. But I think it's a wonderful experiment. The track needs to be heard. You never will hear Poco like this again. I mean, it's not commercial. But again, this album's not real cohesive like some of the records I'm going to be talking about. But I have to appreciate it for what it is. They're just kind of, yeah, we've tried other things that didn't work. Hey, let's do this record. Let's see how this goes. But this was the last time we had Richie until he rejoined the band. So get the idea. I think it's a good record. Hey, it's my number five. So
Yeah, so that means something, right?
yep.
All right, my number seven, you've already mentioned it, From the Inside from 71.
Right.
Good stuff. Third album, Epic Records.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jim Messina up and gone. Join up with Mr. Loggins. They would go on to do some really good things together. Paul Carton comes in, does a
Mm-hmm.
fine job. Steve Cropper. I like the production here. It was the only time they worked with Steve Cropper, the legend. Yeah, everything you said. There's some really good stuff on here. I mean, Hoedown is total crisp country rocker. Pedal steel and tasty picking all over the place on it. Bad Weather is good. I'm not that big on What Am I Gonna Do or You Are the One, but man, Railroad Days is just bluesy, gritty,
Yeah.
hard rock, basically. One of my favorites on here. Great lead guitar from Paul Cotton, who's a really, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Titled track's kind of haunting, mellow but very melodic, effective vocals. Do You Feel It Too has some blistering guitars from Paul Cotton. I get Grant a early kind of similar time period Grateful Dead feel on that, just a little bit.
I can see
What If
that.
I Should Say I Love You? Really good rocker. And I really like Just For Me and You, which I think is really catchy as well. I think you mentioned, they're missing Messina here for a lot of reasons, but as far as like the multi-part vocal harmonies go, they're just continuing on and just
Mhm.
even though there might be a little bit missing, I think it's almost like you close your eyes and it's like you can tell there's a little something that's not here anymore, but they just continue to put out really stellar stuff. I think it's a very, very solid record. So that's my number seven.
Yeah, it's not like when Richie left, where I really could tell a difference in the
Yeah,
vocals.
yeah. That's what
I
happens when
keep,
you have so many strong people in the band, right? So one guy leaves, it's like, all right, you feel it, but it's just like, all right, but they're still
yep.
killing it, right? So
Mhm.
all right, my number six, I'm gonna go with Poco, the second album, self-titled.
I
Epic.
thought you would have rated this higher.
Well, it's, it's really good. I don't know. It's really good. Um, Timothy comes on board, right, replacing Randy. Hurry Up is a great track. Upbeat rocker to kick off the album. You gotta have that first track. It's gotta just pull people in. Vocals are great. The guitars are really gritty. You Better Think Twice is one of their early hits. That's a really good one. That's kind of to me, that's like the Byrds, meet Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Really good song. The only song I don't really like on this album is Honky Tonk Downstairs. Yeah, it's okay. It's nothing great. But man, anyways, Bye Bye like that a lot. It's moody, it's kind of bluesy. Guitars are all over the place. Keep on Believing, really good guitar licks on that. It's got a kind of nice groove to it. I really dig that. Don't Let It Pass By, soulful stuff. They can do that soulful thing every now and then. They had the vocal chops for it. And then how about like Nobody's Fool? I mean, that's like big 18-minute long jam, all sorts of things going on here. You got drum solos, percussion solos, loads of guitars. That's really, really good. Really, really good. And it's almost weird because it almost kind of doesn't fit on the album, right? It's like it's so different from everything else before it. I think there's some great guitar playing on this album. And this one made it to number 68 on the Billboard charts for them. So it did pretty well for them. But yeah, it's my number six. Really good. Yeah, could have
Yeah, I
been.
think I just have to add, nobody's fool. Was it El Tonto Di Nade? Whatever. Uh, it is a jam. I think it's an absolutely wonderful track. It puts the Allman Brothers, you could put them in a knockout, drag out battle. This just goes to show you how good Poco is as a band, as musicians.
Yeah.
They are stretching out. If you like Traffic, you like the Allman Brothers, you like, God, it even sounds like there's a little bit of Sly and the Family Stone in here. It's a wonderful creative jam. I rated this album way high on my list because I just absolutely dig it. The track could be shortened maybe a little bit.
Yeah, 18
My
minutes kind of
God,
pushing
Pete, the
it.
musicianship,
Yeah,
right?
really good. Yeah, these guys are good players. They're really, really good
Yeah.
players. And that's I think the fantastic thing about doing these deep dives in these albums that like maybe you only really knew the hits and the radio stuff and which are great and fine, but then you realize like, wow, these guys are serious players. Like they could have been a jam band if they wanted
Oh,
to,
oh, definitely.
you know?
Mhm.
And my number five, also mentioned by you, I got it just a little bit higher. I'm going to go with the Seven album
Oh,
from 1974, right? It
yeah,
was on the two
yeah.
and one. Weird how it's called Seven, but it's really their sixth studio album because they kind of counted the live album. Whatever, yeah, it's strange. Jack Richardson on the production. I think he does a great job. I really like the stuff he did with this band. First Without Richie, staying as a four piece. I mean, love Driving Wheel.
Mhm.
I think George's drums are really good on the sound. We haven't really talked a lot about his drumming, but he's when the band kind of rocks out a little more, he's there doing some really good stuff. I love Paul's guitar playing. I think he's
Yep.
just excellent, excellent on this album. Rocky Mountain Breakdown, that's just blazing shit kicker country, bluegrass, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you got mandolin and fiddle, and Jim Messina comes back and plays some mandolin on this one, which is pretty cool. You got fiddle on here from Al Garth. I love Just Call My Name. Good hard rocker. Sounds like a heavier Eagles to me. You know when the Eagles really rocked out?
Yep.
Really good song. Um, Faith in the Families. Again, reminds me of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young a little bit.
That's what I wrote down.
Yeah, it's a totally. I mean, they just got the harmony things going on here. Cricket song, I don't really care for that too much. Angels, pretty laid back, but it's got some good slide guitar and Rusty sounds great. And I like You've Got Our Reasons, which is the good closer. So yeah, really good album. Number five for me. We got more good stuff coming.
There you go. That's my number 10. So it just goes to show
Yeah,
you there's it could be my 10, it'd be Pete's five, and it's
yep,
just a strong catalog.
yep, yep, for sure.
So
Number four.
number four. Okay, scroll, Grant, because I was going back to where you were. All right, here we go. Um, oh, now we're really getting to the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know where you rated this or you even rated it, but I'm gonna go with number four, Cantamos, which means we sing in Spanish. Seven studio album,
Cantamos. Cantamos.
Cantamos. Well, yeah,
Cantamos.
I didn't take Spanish.
I am half Spanish. I should know at least that, right?
All
So
right, thank you. Thanks for bailing me out. Um, Cantamos. Is that good?
Cantamos, yes. Mhm.
Cantamos. Seven studio album by the band Poco, of course, released in 1974. An epic. Uh, I think you get a little bit more traditional country rock because before the records before a little bit more harder rocking, but to some degree. Got Paul Courtney, Rusty, Timothy B. Schmidt, and George on here. Starts out with Sagebrush Serenade. Rusty Young starting us off. The acoustic. This is starts out as an acoustic track and morphs into a banjo workout.
Yeah.
Um, Reminds me of like a David Crosby song. Kind of wild. Suzanne is a great, beautiful Paul Cotton song. Nice acoustic guitar. The steel work from Rusty just pops out at you. More like early Poco, more country than rock, but it's okay. High and Dry, Rusty Young again, a nod to CSNY to me. Harmonies, great playing, great track. It rocks. And again, what's really predominant is Rusty playing that damn pedal steel through the Leslie cabinet,
Yeah.
making it sound like a Hammond organ. Once I listen to it and I go, wow, listen to that Hammond. Then I go, well, damn it, Grant, that's not a Hammond. That's Rusty
I'm
playing
like
through a
looking in
Leslie.
the credits. I'm like,
There's no,
where's
I
the
did the
player? Where's
same
the-
thing. There's no Hammond on here. It's Rusty. Amazing.
I don't know if that's ever been done before on any album of note that I can think of. It's just
But
cool.
I love this song. If you know Loggins and Messina, the song Angry Eyes, which I think is a phenomenal song. Love Angry Eyes. There's some great Loggins and Messina stuff if you haven't checked it out. That's what this song reminds me of. You get a strong bass from Timothy, track segues into like a Western, it segues right into the next track, Western Waterloo. Kind of cool. But man, this song screams Angry Eyes to me. So Western Waterloo is a Paul Cotton song. And I wrote on my notes, I said, why wasn't this album bigger?
Yeah.
Great stuff, great vocals. Every song has a catchy chorus. The band is hitting it out of the park. The thing I like about this record is that it's pretty much a very good blend of rock and country. And I think that the record flows very well. And I think everybody's on the same page. This is why I rated it higher. It seems more like an album than a collection of songs. One Horse Blues, Cotton, another great track. God, and I wrote on here, love the guitar tones on these albums. Paul Cotton, you and we might start a fan club, Pete. Paul Cotton, guitar player fan club. His guitar tones and playing, like particularly on this track, just kill. God, great player. Bitter Blue, Timothy B. Schmidt, another great track. A rocker with Tim singing. The guitars soar on this record. Um, I could keep going. I think you get picking up what I'm putting down. I do want to mention this All the Ways. This is a Rusty Young song. Great vocals. You can see why the song Crazy Love became a hit. Rusty is really coming together on this album as a songwriter, as a vocalist, as you check the box. Every album, Rusty Young gets better. I mean, he is, as far as I'm concerned, Poco could never have been Poco without Rusty Young.
I would agree
Impossible.
with that. I would agree with
So
that.
that's my number four. My number three, I'm going to go with Picking Up the Pieces, 1969. This was Pete's number 10. You've got a lot of Richie songs, and my theory is there's a lot of songs he probably had in the Springfield that he didn't get to use because this is pretty much a Richie album. Richie, to me, in this period is Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
some people look at we had already had problems in Toto. Randy Meisner left. There are different legends. I don't know what you want to call it. There's one version that I listened to an interview with um, Jim Messina, and he said that the problem is that he and um, Richie had a falling out. There's another story which uh, Messina wanted to go to the mixing sessions, and well, he wasn't allowed. He wasn't. They didn't want him there at the mixing session. Only Jim Messina wanted to be there to mix. I don't know what the problem is. Someone had a falling out, and we lost Randy. Would have been great to see Randy to continue, but it is what it is. The other thing is, I mean, for a lot of the fan base, they think this album is the album. This is Poco. I think Poco developed. I think this is a good first offering. Yeah, it's great. It's Poco in their infancy. But the bass kind of lacks. Jim Messina never cared for this record because he wasn't happy with the production. He wasn't allowed to really go in and twiddle the knobs because don't forget, Messina was an engineer. He produced and engineered a lot of albums before he got to the Springfield. And he basically just played on it, even though I think he produced it, but he never was really happy with this record. But that's neither here and there. I think it's a good first outing. It's more country than rock. Like I said, this is more of a country record. I know it gets put in that category, country rock, but it's pretty much a country record. Uh, Forward, What a Day is kind of like a bit more country than Buffalo Springfield, but seems like a logical progression. I listened to this album like if, let's say, the Springfield kept going. I think if the Buffalo Springfield kept going, this might have been where they ended up. So if you listen to all those Buffalo Springfield albums, you listen to this, you'll probably feel right at home. Nobody's Fool, Horn, Shimmering Guitars, Calico Lady. Uh, it's driven by a great acoustic guitar riff from Messina. Features one of George Grantham's few lead vocals, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to
Yeah.
know what he sounds like, this would be a good example to hear what he's about. You've got First Love by Richie, ballad, pretty traditional, drums, bass, steel, great. Make Me Smile is a Richie Jim Messina song. Uh, Fine. Picking Up the Pieces, killer. Steel from Rusty on this record. And the one thing I think the two true stars on this record are Richie's songs and Rusty's steel playing. Rusty's very predominant on this record. If you like steel guitar, this album is for you. Um, yeah, I think it's a good first album. I think that they have better albums up ahead, but still, some people think this is the best album. It is what it is. My number two, I'm going to go with Poco from 1970. Now, this album's a little bit all over the place. This is the arrival of Timothy B. Schmidt. This is the second record. We know Randy Meisner's gone, and I think Timothy B. Schmidt does a great job in filling those shoes. Hurry Up is a Richie song. More rockin', the guitar licks kill, and the Hammond is strong, quote unquote, steal through the
Yeah.
Leslie speaker. Distorted lead guitar breaks, powerful drumming from George. And you mentioned that George, as far as a drummer, excellent. I think he could play anything you threw at him. I think his drumming on this album really stands out. Great. You better you better think twice, Jim Messina. I think this is a better offering than what Jim provided to the first Poco record. The first one was, oh yeah, that song didn't do anything for me, and Jim's vocal just kind of lays there. The thing is with these records, I would like to have more Jim Messina, and he just seems to be not quite in the forefront. I don't know if his idea of being in a band is to be more of a producer, engineer, and then just kind of come in and play some guitar and do a vocal. I don't know. He's not really that predominant. So when Jim left, I don't think it was a big loss. I think Timothy B. Schmidt, I mean, Paul Cotton really picked up the pieces, so to speak. So I don't know. It is what it is. But honky tonk downtown, honky tonk downstairs. I can't talk. This is George Jones country. Kind of reminds me of the great Graham Parsons because this is what Graham Parsons liked. He liked that kind of George Jones kind of stuff. It's pretty country. Um, Keep on Believing, Timothy B. Schmidt, Richie Furay song, more funky country rock number. The way I look at this record, I like a lot of guitar. I look at this as a guitar record. There's so much guitar interplay and steel interplay and bass interplay with Timothy and everybody. That's what I like about it. And we already know how I feel about Nobody's Fool, El Tonto, Donade, whatever. Brilliant. It's too long, but man, these guys are great musicians, a great jam. This album, some people rate this a lot lower, but yeah, it's a little bit of a schizophrenic album, but I love everything on it.
That's the
Can't
important.
help
Yeah.
it. I just love everything on it.
I'm getting very excited because I think you and I have the same number one. We
Well,
shall see, but I think so.
you're going to do your three, and why don't you do your three, and then we'll do our number one. I think I know what your number one is.
Yeah, I think I know what yours is as well. So, and before we go on, because we were kind of talking about it before, wondering what kind of guitars Paul was playing. So I've just been pulling up and looking at some live shots of him
Mhm.
throughout the 70s and whatnot and seeing what he's playing. It looks like a lot of Gretsch guitars, some Les Pauls and other semi-hollow body Gibsons and some Guilds. That looks like to be his weapons of choice. I don't see him playing any Strats here or Telecasters at all. Again,
On that one album that I think we might rate at number one,
oh wait, I do
he's
see him playing a Tele from
he's
1972.
also he's also he also has a 50 Strat that he plays.
You could be right. I do see one picture of him with a Tele from 1972. So yeah. So he would be a lot of Gretsch guitars,
Mhm.
semi-hollow body Gretsch guitars. So that's not
So
surprising.
that's kind of the Buffalo Springfield, kind of the
Yeah.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash thing, because Neil was always playing his Gretsch
Yep.
during that
Sure.
stuff.
But a few Les Paul shots here. So
Mhm.
yeah. All right. So my number four is going to be one you also mentioned, Head Over Heels. Eighth
Mhm.
album, 1975, produced by the band. I really like this album.
Uh-huh.
This is, and I think you mentioned it, this is a really, really well-produced album. This is an album full of lots of textures and intricacies and whatnot. Um, I mean, Keep on Trying, really great kind of country rock anthem to open up the album. Really good. The vocal harmonies are great. Love and Arms is great. Love the violin and the pedal steel and just these things sweeping all over the place. Let Me Turn You Back is good. Making Love is excellent. Really big hooks, those shimmering acoustic and electric guitars. Really, really nice. Down in the Quarter, kind of moody. They do the moody thing on this album a little bit, which I think is okay. Sitting on a Fence, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I mean, it's just, again, they're not ripping them off, but it's like if you
No.
like that sort of thing, that's what this is all about. Georgia Bind My Ties has some nice rock elements, good guitars. You mentioned Rusty singing on Us. I think it's really good. I wish the song was longer. It's kind of short. Flying Solo, it's kind of groovy. I'm like, I like when these guys do groovy. They don't often do that. And I think the cover of the Steely Dan song Dallas is brilliant. I think it's really, really good.
Wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think this album really excels because I think the band here are finally like really embracing their pop side of things, and it really works. So this is a really good pop album with country and rock elements, and I
Mhm.
think the vocal harmonies are just really, really well done. Really great album. I mean, it's a number four for me, so it really has impressed me. My number three, I'm going to go with Indian Summer from 1977, 10th album.
Oh,
Yeah. So this is the
nice.
last album before Tim and or Timothy and George leave the band, right? So it's the last one with that kind of mid-period classic lineup. I think the title track is really memorable. Great chorus, great pedal steel. You have Donald Fagen shows up on synthesizer. Hey, why not, right? Kind of cool. 20 Years is kind of upbeat pop rock. Kind of has a southern rock feel to it as well, too. There's a little bit more rock and guitars coming on this album. Um, Me and You, kind of gentle. That's okay. Nothing spectacular. It's all right. Downfall, again, those big rocking guitars come out there. It's kind of southern rocky. I like Win or Lose. That's kind of groovy, kind of funky. Again, I like when this band does a little groovy and funky. Why not? Great guitar licks. Living in the Band, another good upbeat rocker. One of my favorites here. Great guitar work and vocals from Paul Cotton. Really, really good. Can't say enough about this guy. And then at the end, you get this blazing pedal steel solo from Rusty. Just terrific. Um, Stay, Night Until Noon, another good upbeat rocker. I like, and my exact words, I love how Rusty's shimmering pedal steel
Mhm.
sounds just like an organ throughout this album and throughout this catalog. It's crazy stuff. Great lead guitar from Paul Cotton, and Find Out in Time. That's kind of mellow country. There's even some harmonica, which I really don't like at all. But then, the chorus is just so amazing. It's just like these guys just get you with these choruses. So good. And then you have the three-part, The Dance, which
Mhm.
is excellent. Just really good. It's got some great lead guitar from Paul Cotton. Each of the three parts of the song are a little bit different. Really good, really enjoyable album. Love it a lot. And my number two is gonna be Legend.
I knew it.
You knew it, huh?
Well, you were gonna rank it higher,
Yeah.
but I
I mean,
can, Nate,
it's
but I can totally get why you would pick it.
all about the songs, right? I mean, that's just, again, it was
All the
supposed to.
songs are great.
The songs are great. It's different. It's a little more of a pop album, like you mentioned. It's
Mhm.
got more rock on it too, but different. It's 1978, so the decade is wearing on. We're getting the 80s are right around the corner. And I get why maybe they wanted to, go under the Cotton Young band because they probably themselves felt this was not really that much like a Poco album. But the record label intervened and we're like, no, you got to release as a Poco because nobody's going to buy the Cotton Young Band album, right? Probably correct.
Yeah.
But there's just great songs on here. I absolutely love Boomerang. I think it's more of like a groovy rock song for them.
Mhm.
And I think it really works. A lot of tasty guitars. The drumming is great. I think Spellbound sounds more of like what you would expect from Poco. I really like that a lot. Barbados, you hit the nail on the head.
It's
Hello, Yacht
Yachty.
Rock. Hello, Yacht Rock,
But
Barbados.
I never would have thought to put Poco in that classification, but there's songs on here that can check that box. And
Hmm.
that's not taking anything away from it.
No, no, not at all. Not at
But
all.
Barbados, I could just see myself on a yacht drinking a drink, listen to this song.
Yeah, with the wind going through your hair, you got the hat on, you're just catching some rays. It's totally it's really really good. Little Darling is great. Love Comes, Love Goes reminds me of more like the pop stuff that the Eagles did, very similar to that. I mean, Heart of the Night is a terrific, terrific song. It's they have a few songs in this catalog that are just, Rose of Cimarron is one, Heart of the Night is another, Crazy Love is another. I mean, these are just like these should have been massive, massive hits.
A Good
And I
Feeling to
know
Know is
they did
another
pretty well.
track.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so good. Just so good. And how funny is it that Heart of the Night and Crazy Love, two of their most well-known tracks, comes on an album that probably wasn't even going to be a Poco album, and it becomes their biggest album, right? This was
Yeah.
supposed to be a duo album for it's crazy how that
It's
worked out.
crazy.
Um, yeah, I mean, The Last Goodbye, the title track. I love the title track. I think the title track is great. Just nice, raucous, hard rocker. Really like it. Great lead guitar
Mhm.
from Paul
Yep.
Cotton. Made it to number 14 on the Billboard charts and went gold here in the States. Really like it a lot. Grant, talk about our number one. I'm pretty sure we have the same one.
Well, my number one, let me get my prop ready because we want to do this properly. And I hope this is your number
I
one
hope so. I think it's got to be. It's got to be.
because there's a lot of speculation. This is a little, I don't know if it's controversial. I think the band more or less thought this is a failure. They tried to make a record that's a little bit more commercial, not anything like Legend, but I'm assuming you're going to go with Poco, A Good Feeling to Know.
There we go.
This is okay. This is a perfect blend of rock and country rock.
Yes.
Every song on here is a gem. The guitars are very predominant and the guitars are overdriven to some degree.
Let me ask
It's
you a question. Do you hear
uh,
any Crazy Horse on this album?
yeah.
Neil and Crazy Horse. That I
Oh
hear a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Maybe not to that extreme,
No, no, but yeah.
these guys are cranking up their guitars. This is a guitar record. There's a lot of interplay between, Richie, Paul, and Timothy. I mean, geez, and don't forget Rusty.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. What did I write about this? This is 1972. This was an attempt to commercialize their sound. Now, when I listen to this, Pete, I don't really hear that. I just hear this is a good rockin'
It's just a rock.
album,
It's a rock record with a
rock
country
record.
twinge to it. Yeah, that's exactly yeah.
A rock record when you sprinkle a little country on top
Yeah,
with good results. This shows me when I listen to this, these guys are really rock musicians,
yeah.
really trying to venture down that country road. But man, uh, and settling down, it opens up Richie song. Sounds like a long lost Buffalo Springfield track. It rocks. I love the guitar sound on this. Slightly overdriven. The steel is slightly overdriven. It just sounds like a very powerful, uh, what do I want to say? They just sound very alive. It almost sounds like a live record. The guitar vocal interplay is just like Buffalo Springfield. In
Yeah.
fact, this sounds like a long lost Buffalo Springfield album. Ride the Country is a Paul Cotton song. Raw guitars. I wrote on my notes, much like Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Paul sounds great here, and so do the backgrounds. Reminds me of Down by the River. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. I can see everything Timothy B. Schmidt, Timothy Ballard, doing what Tim Schmidt does best.
Yeah.
Uh, you listen to this, yeah, we'll hire you for Tim. Can you come join the Eagles? Yeah. Go and say goodbye, Stephen Stills. Stephen Stills cover. Poco makes it their own.
Yep.
But boy, does it sound like Buffalo Springfield. I wrote on here, I love it.
Yeah.
Keeper of the Fire, Paul Cotton. Love the interplay here with the steel, guitar, and bass. And I wrote on here, this is really a guitar album. Schmidt's bass has power, and his bass lines are nice and fluid. The bass really drives this song. Uh, this is the most country so far in the record. There's really not that much here.
No.
Early times, Paul Cotton, more of a slow groove. Good Feeling to Know. Richie Furay, damn, a highlight track. Guitar interplay is top notch. What else can I say? It rocks. Get yours today, kids. Uh, Restrained, Timothy B. Schmidt sounds like Neil Young playing guitar. There's a lot of Neil Young sounding guitar on. It must be that Gretsch.
It's got to be. And
Got to be that Gretsch.
using a little bit of overdrive, right?
Yeah.
Because everything just sounds cranked up a little bit on this album. Yeah, for sure.
Another ballad, another Timothy B. Schmidt ballad, Harmonies, very CSN. It wraps up with Sweet Lovin', which is a Richie song. it's a long track. It's 6 minutes. It's almost like it's hymn-like, haunting, kind
Kind of
of
gospel,
gospel.
got a gospel
Yeah.
feel. Yep, 100%.
Um, but I must say, what it really features, it really takes you by the, really makes you notice is Rusty's use of that Hammond effect with his pedal steel.
Yeah,
This is a 10 out of 10 album,
yeah,
5 out of 5, whatever your ranking system is. This is phenomenal. Now, some folk Poco fans rate this lower. They must be deaf because this is a perfect Poco album.
yeah, yeah. I don't really have much more to add. I agree with everything you said. This to me was the clear number one. And
Player
again,
number one.
yeah, it really was. I mean, and this did pretty well for this. Made it to number 69 on the Billboard charts. Was a pretty good seller for them. But I just find start to finish, there's just no drop off here. And I like the fact that they were really pushing the guitars on this album. Jack Richardson again produced this album as well. Because he worked with Alice Cooper right around the same time. But I think he just something about this album. Yeah, they looked the part there too, right? Something about this album from a production standpoint, the songs, the guitars, the vocal interplay. And you mentioned it on Settling Down. Man, that's like it's got the triple guitar attack going on there. You got the electric guitars, the acoustic guitars, the pedal steel, all doing this stuff. It's like it's so good. And yeah, I get a really strong Neil Young and Crazy Horse vibe throughout this album, and I think that really really resonated with me. So and really good memorable songs. Yeah, I don't know what more to say. It's
5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 in my book.
yeah, it's really, really good. And again, it just kind of hammers home this whole point that, this was, I think, a criminally underrated and underappreciated band who should have been way bigger than they were. And for those of you who are watching, who maybe were like us, that like kind of knew the hits and not a lot else, dig into these albums, folks. There's a lot of really good stuff here. And our other than our number one, we had a lot of the same albums in our top 10, but appearing in various places. So you got a lot of great places to start here with this particular catalog. And don't miss out. There's also some other really good albums too. Like I think Ghost Town is also really good, as are what is it called? Imurata in Imurata.
Yeah.
Also some later, getting into the late 70s, early 80s. And then you've got Under the Gun and Blue and Gray, also solid
Hmm.
stuff. I mean, it didn't make my list. It was just outside, but I think Crazy Eyes is pretty terrific as well. So a lot of good stuff here. A lot of good
Yeah, I
stuff.
want to mention something real quick before we wrap it up. I mentioned that iconoclastic issue of From the Inside. Now, this has two bonus tracks. Uh, a song called Come On, which was on Deliverin', and this is the studio version of it. They only put it out as a live version on Deliverin', and it's a great live song. But
Deliverance is
it's
a really good
all,
live album, by the way,
yeah,
folks.
we didn't look any live albums. That'd be for another show. But Come On is the studio version of it, and it should have been on this record. There's also a song on here called A Man Like Me, unreleased studio version of this as well. Phenomenal. If you get well worth the price of admission if you get the iconoclastic version of this record for those bonus tracks. If you're a completist, if you like Poco, these are killer tracks. It's a good, and this record, of course, it's mastered by Sony or whatever. Great, phenomenal. I just wanted to mention that.
Cool. So, for those of you who know this band very well, feel free to rank your top 10 or do the whole catalog if you like, because we didn't include, what's there, another 7 or 8 albums, right? But
Yeah.
feel free to do as much as you want down in the comments below. And if you're new to the band, go out and investigate some of these albums we discussed today and come back and let us know what you think. That's the important thing, right? So, we'll see you next time here on Ranking the Albums. Grant, what's going on over at the Contrarians and the Rock Warehouse?
Well, we should be. Last week we didn't do a live Wednesday show on the Contrarians. We'll probably start that up on Wednesday, but more stuff coming out. I got stuff to edit. That's what I'll be doing the rest of the day. Next week in the warehouse, Stephen Schnee will be back. We are going to do part two of our Aviary series. We're going to look at that second album and go track by track.
Cool.
Uh, Also coming up, the Parish of Rock will be back, and we are going to start part two in our Slade series, where we are going to go through the entire catalog of Slade, a very highly influential band that no one talks about, and they never really hit it big here. And also on Thursday, we're going to do a top 10 of Three Dog Night And Rand will be back, and we will be doing King's X. So that's all going to be recorded this week. A lot going on this week. So,
Cool. Sounds
but
good.
Contrarians, I'm not sure. Always something coming up.
Always something. And Grant will be joining me back here on ranking the albums very, very soon. He just doesn't know it yet, but
Oh, okay.
we'll talk about that after we get done.
All right.
I will need your services, my friend, for the next two episodes if you're up to the task.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. And what do we have going on here? Of course, it's Sunday, so we've got Tuesday is in the prog seat, so we're doing our progressive metal show. So tune in on Tuesday night. We'll be talking about our 10 favorite prog metal albums released in the 1990s. So very fun episode. So stay tuned for that. And lots more coming up this week, as always. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please hit the like button before you leave. We'll see you next time here on Ranking the Albums. For Grant Arthur, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.